Nintendo, your information about the physical copies of Switch 2 games is so confusing. You need to be very clear on what you can and can't do. People are trying to spend money with you. Maybe not $80, but anyway. Today we're going to talk about what we know so far. We're going to look at new games, the enhanced games, and I also want to talk a little bit about the keycards. So, starting with new games, this is the easiest one. These are exclusive to Switch 2. They will only work on a Switch 2. You cannot play them on a Switch 1. If you want to play these games, you must buy a Switch 2. These include Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza. That's simply because the Switch 2 hardware is a lot more powerful, and it is actually slightly different architecture. So much so that the Switch 1 games are actually kind of emulated. They call it a translation layer being used, which I guess is like an enhanced emulation. Which does mean that Switch 1 games may run buggy on a Switch 2. There is a Switch 2 game compatibility list that talks about this, and apparently they're going to be updating a PDF regarding the status of these things. So, the Nintendo Switch 2 editions essentially are an upgrade pack, which hopefully means that the games that were originally being created on a Switch 1 are going to run natively on a Switch 2, if not at least still a lot better, taking advantage of the extra power for frame rate resolution and new features like the mouse control and so on and so forth. But again, the physical distribution is just a mess. So we'll have a look at what we know. So having a look at the game box itself, there's a blurb at the bottom here that says it includes the Nintendo Switch game and the Nintendo Switch 2 Edition upgrade pack. Sounds like there's two things on the cart. The thing is, it doesn't really mean anything. Is it combined? Is it a single piece of software that only works on a Switch 2? Or are they two separate things that's going to work on a Switch 1 as a Switch 1 Edition or automatically on the Switch 2 upgraded? We have two conflicting statements. One, it's a Vooks. Maybe it's not really conflicting, but we'll read it and we'll have a look anyway. So this statement says that the physical versions of Nintendo Switch 2 Edition games will include the original Nintendo Switch game and its upgrade pack all on the same game cart file. So you don't have to download it. Okay? So some people thought it was going to be a download code. Alternatively, however, some publishers may release Nintendo Switch 2 Edition games as download codes in physical packaging. Okay, so it's down to the developer. See, I do not agree with this. It should be one way only. It should be like enforced by Nintendo. Like, if you're going to have a Switch 2 Enhanced Edition physical, this is what you do. Otherwise, everyone has to look at every single game on a case-by-case basis, and that is just a massive headache for everyone. Now, the thing that I want to point out here is they said exclusively Nintendo Switch 2 game cards. Exclusive only. Only works on Switch 2. That's how I read this. However, if we go to the very newly announced from Marvelous, they say here, what is the physical Nintendo Switch 2 edition? It's a red 64 gigabyte game cart that includes in full the Switch game and the upgrade pack. No need to download the full game. Insert the cart into either a Switch or Switch 2. Either a Switch 2. One or the other, both okay. And the correct version will launch automatically. Exclusive, either, very different statement. Another thing that we know is that there is a Switch 2 cart notch. If I look at this, however, that's kind of like a gap. I don't see that blocking inserting this cartridge into a Switch 1. And this blurb here actually says this is how it tells the difference between Nintendo Switch 2 game cards and Nintendo Switch game cards. 2 or 1, basically, right? So it's a physical indicator to tell the Switch 2 what game card is installed. Using Paint, my massive Paint skills, let's say that a Switch 2 cart doesn't look like a highlight box. It looks more like this. And a Switch 1 cart is just flat. Okay. So I imagine that in the Switch 2 game cart socket, there will be a little lever here. So that if you insert a regular game it's going to push in, and it's going to tell the Switch 2, you must play in backwards compatibility mode. That's my understanding of this notch as I look at it in this picture. So I guess it means that you can install any Switch 2 card into a Switch 1, but only the Switch 2 edition cards are actually going to be playable. For all we know, there could be another physical design where the Switch 2 exclusive cards cannot be physically inserted into a Switch 1. We will learn soon enough. That's just so confusing. However, once again, looking at this statement, other developers may just give you a download code. What a mess. I would suggest that you just don't make any assumptions and wait until we have some in our own hands before you make any purchasing decisions if this is important to you. Alright, and lastly, what I wanted to talk about was the game keycards. Keycards, even. So basically, the packaging is going to tell you it's a game keycard. It basically means that you must download the full game. The card itself is just the license. It works exactly the same as a physical game, outside the fact that you have to download it. So once you've downloaded it, if the physical card is in the console, you can play it. If you take it out, you can't. Here it doesn't tell you a lot about the download process. It just says here, install, once you insert it there, you can follow some instructions. But actually the Japanese FAQ tells you that you don't even need a Nintendo account for this. It'll just download. Also, it's not tied to any account or anything like that. So if you put the card into another Switch, you'll be able to download it on the other Switch, and then whatever Switch has the game card in it will be able to play it. In future, now this is the part that everybody's worried about, and so am I, but in future, of course, we're worried that the servers are going to go down and then you won't be able to download it. But I do have a question to Nintendo. We can share game updates. When you update, you can either connect online or to a nearby Switch to get a game patch. Will you be able to connect to a nearby Switch to download the full game? And therefore, can retailers, if you go into the store and buy the game, offer a service where they just let you download from their Switch or from a kiosk rather than from online? And therefore, once the servers are gone down, can people actually pass the game data to each other? And as long as you've got the game card in there, you can play it. I mean, that seems like a sound solution, right? If it's not implemented now, then before the servers go down, please do that. And as much as I'm sure that most of us do not like the idea of a game card having nothing on it, that you must connect online first and download it, that you can't just buy it off the shelf and play it. If you think about a game like Animal Crossing, when this first came out, what's on the cart versus the final edition is so different. If you play version 1.0, you can't swim, you can't have a cup of coffee, there's no red, you can't collect any pieces of art, there's no Happy Home Paradise DLC. There are no hanging ceiling items, there are no polishing items, you can't move things like half a tile in the room. There are so many more items. The seasonal events don't exist. It almost might as well have been a game keycard. And not that you probably care, but from a developer's perspective, they could actually use this to still distribute a physical thing to everybody and then force no people playing early. I imagine this would happen for games like Pokemon. Why Pokemon? You can't even back up your save. They're trying to be very tight and fair on all players, like as if everyone might actually do some sort of competition, and they want you to be using your legitimately trained Pokemon. So I can imagine that they would gatekeep the time that people could start playing this too. Maybe they can do that on a physical keycard. To me, in the perfect world, once a developer stops supporting a game, they should re-release a collector's edition physical copy, with all of the updates included. That would be your preservation model, playable until the card has fallen to the sands of time and disintegrated.